Hey there, I'm Amy from thecrazycraftlady.com. Today we're going to make a couple of Valentine's Day crafts using dollar store canvases. So I've got a couple canvases here that I got at the Dollar Tree. This is a 5x7, this is an 8x10, and then they also have sometimes these square 10x10 canvases. Whenever I see stretch canvases at Dollar Tree, I try to scoop them up and keep them in my craft stash for later projects. But we're going to make reverse canvases. So basically the whole concept is you take the canvas, you cut the stretched canvas part off of it, revealing the wooden frame behind it, so that you can then use the wooden frame as like the base of your project, and then the canvas is on the back. A lot of people ask me, Amy, why don't you just buy a picture frame? It seems like so expensive to buy canvases. Actually, it's cheaper for me to buy either dollar store canvases, or I'll buy them like in a 10-pack at Michael's and use a coupon. It's cheaper for me to buy canvases than it is for me to a lot of times buy picture frames. Also, I just think reverse canvas projects are really fun to make, so we're gonna make 3 for Valentine's Day. Let's get making.
For this craft, I started with an 8x10 stretched canvas from Dollar Tree. I just took my pen blade. I buy these, it's called a pen blade. Someone commented on one of my videos, they're like, it's not a pen blade, it's called an X-Acto knife. Well, if you search in Amazon, or I can link below, I buy them in 3 packs, and it's called a pen blade. I've also seen Fiskars has like a fingertip blade, and it literally is like a blade that has a little attachment so you can it sticks to your pointer finger and you can just cut things. But use an X-Acto knife, use a razor blade, whatever, just please be careful. Well, you separate the stretched canvas from the wooden frame, and then flip the frame over and trace it onto that canvas piece, and you're going to trim that canvas piece so it's just a little smaller than the outside border of the wooden frame. So I like to use a Sharpie and then just cut right inside that Sharpie line. Trim it down a little bit more if needed. And then I grabbed, these are 15mm wooden half balls. I ordered them on Amazon. I think I've ordered them 10 times now probably. I use them in so many projects. But these are just the 15mm ones, which I find is a really good standard size for the type of crafts that I do. But just dry fit them all the way around your frame there, and then just use a little bit of wood glue and a fine point paintbrush. I find that using a paintbrush is easier than using like the nozzle on the wood glue bottle, but it's all about personal preference. And if you dry fit everything beforehand, then you know that the spacing is nice and even, and you won't like come up on a corner. It's like, oh, I need a half a wood ball or something, right? Or a half of a half wood ball. Okay. Down a rabbit hole. Reel it in, Amy. Okay, so I just glued all those little wooden half balls to my frame. And then it was time to paint my canvas piece. So I just used some painter's tape to secure it down to like I use a manila folder, use a scrap of cardboard, just something that can get paint on it. And then I just went into my Cricut design space and I cut out these XOOX letters. If you don't have a Cricut, you could also just maybe lay some pieces of masking tape together to form like one large piece, and then just cut out freehand with scissors like a heart or X's and O's or a bunch of little hearts. The sky's the limit. Or get heart stickers from the Dollar Tree or the craft store. My only takeaway from this is it is a little tricky to get your vinyl to stick to that canvas piece, so don't do anything with teeny tiny fine details. You want like a big chunky pattern or texture or image. But once I got my vinyl transferred, then I came in with just a coat of Mod Podge. Any kind of Mod Podge works. I always use matte. And just give a solid coat over your entire design, and this will help give you crisp lines and no paint bleed. This also works if you're doing this type of thing on wood surfaces as well. And then it was time to, my wood glue had dried, so it was time to paint. And I will say, these little bobbin looking frames are so cute, but they're kind of a pain to paint. I couldn't go outside because it was too cold. I couldn't spray paint, but I just grabbed a can of my white Rust-Oleum plain chalk paint, a flat 1-inch paintbrush, and just paint in all directions, up, down, left, right, north, south, east, west, whatever works for you. And do one solid good coat, let it dry, and then make sure you have good lighting and do a second coat of just kind of touch-ups in the nooks and crannies where you missed. Then it's time to get fun. So I used Decor Americana acrylic craft paint. I didn't really have any like solid Valentine colors in my craft stash, but I just used the colors blush pink and deep burgundy. So I did a coat of the deep burgundy first, and while it was still wet, then I mixed in some of that lighter pink color. But you could get really fun and creative here with whatever texture, design, color combination you want to do. I even thought about pulling out like an old toothbrush and trying to like do some spackle dots, but I ended up not doing it. But just have fun and be playful and do whatever you want. But the most important part of this here is do not let the paint fully dry. This will help give you the most perfect crisp lines without any bleeding. So first a coat of Mod Podge, let the Mod Podge dry, then add your acrylic craft paint. While the craft paint is still a little bit tacky, grab a weeding tool or a tweezer or a toothpick or something and very carefully peel off your vinyl, and that's going to give you the best crisp, no bleed paint lines. And then once that acrylic craft paint had fully dried, it's time to assemble the canvas to the frame. Normally, I flip the frame over and just glue the canvas piece right onto it, but normally I don't decorate my canvas until after it's attached to the frame either. So here I wanted to make sure it was perfectly centered, and then I just worked in little tiny sections and hot glued the canvas then down to the back of the wooden frame. But that's it, a finished little cute XOOX Valentine reverse canvas craft. All right, so this has to be the fastest Valentine's craft I've made in quite a while, and I just took a 4x6-inch dollar store stretched canvas, used my pen blade there, or razor blade, or X-Acto knife, whatever you want, to cut the canvas from the wooden frame, rip it all apart. Gets a little tricky at the corners sometimes, so you have to score several times over the corners where multiple layers of canvas are overlapping, but then just trace your little wooden frame onto the canvas piece with a Sharpie or a pen, then grab your craft scissors and cut just inside that marker line so that the canvas piece sits nicely on the back of the wooden frame. Next up, I just got painting. I very simply painted the wooden frame, the front side that doesn't have the staples, Decor Americana acrylic craft paint in the color blush pink. But use whatever color you like that coordinates with, you'll see here in a second, we're going to choose a ribbon. But then I just reassembled my canvas on the back side with the staples, add some hot glue, and then secure the frame right to it. And then here I ordered this chiffon ribbon. It's 9 different colors. I ordered it on Amazon. I think it's really cute. But I just used this light pink color to make a bow. So 2 bunny ears, twist them in a knot, and then flip that tail end on the left side there down. So both tail ends are down, and then you can tighten the ears, the bunny ears of your bow here. So kind of play around with it, finagle it. This is a very delicate ribbon, so I had to be very careful. I didn't want to fray the edges too much, but once you get the bow about the size that you want, then you can just grab your craft scissors and cut the 2 tail ends at a 45-degree angle. And then from there, add the tiniest dab of hot glue on the canvas and hot glue the bow right inside the frame. And then I just used the ends of my craft scissors to kind of fluff up the bow ears there. But that's it, a very simple framed Valentine bow. For this craft, I started with a 10x10 dollar store stretched canvas, and I just removed all the plastic packaging and then used my pen blade to cut the canvas away from the frame. Now, I should have known better that a canvas of this size was not going to have a wooden frame. I knew that, right? It's this cardstock type material. Totally fine. But when I planned my craft, I was like, oh, I'll stain the wooden frame and then paint a scallop pattern on it, which you'll see. But when I realized this was cardboard, I wasn't willing to completely change my plan, so I just kind of went with the wood stain. So I removed the canvas, cut it down to size, and then I just stained the cardboard surface. And this is, I wanted it really dark because I'm going to use white paint over it, so I wanted that contrast. So this is Folk Art Home Decor Wood Tint in the color Walnut, so it's a really dark wood stain. You could use a dark paint, whatever. My biggest thing is I had already photographed the supplies before I started the project, so I was committed to using the wood stain. But I just painted, and the wood surface really absorbed this wood stain a lot. So before I went in with my chalk paint, I wanted to kind of just seal that surface a little bit. So I just added a coat of clear Mod Podge, just so that that cardboard wouldn't continue to soak in a ton of my chalk paint and I didn't have to do 3 or 4 coats to get the coverage that I wanted. But then I did this little scallop pattern. I've seen people paint scallop patterns like around their door frames and in their home decor, and I just thought it would be fun to do it on a frame. So this is a 10 by 10 canvas, so I just laid down a ruler to kind of be my guide, and I used the end of a jumbo craft stick to trace that curve. So just one little curve per inch, and that ruler really helped keep me evenly spaced. So just trace the curve of the popsicle stick with a pencil, and then I just used plain old white Rust-Oleum chalk paint. I have a quart can of it that has lasted me forever. And just a fine point paintbrush, and then paint right inside that pencil line, or right up to the pencil line so the pencil line isn't showing. And it takes a little bit of time, but I think the end result is super cute, so I think it's worth it. But just paint all the way around and let it dry, and then I wasn't thrilled with the coverage, so I went back and I added a very thin second coat of white chalk paint. And this also gave me the opportunity to really smooth out the edges of my scallop pattern and make sure that they were all as uniform as possible, and that, you know, the edges were nice and smooth without any jagged edges or paint brush marks or anything. And then I just painted around the edge of the frame too. Normally you'll see me use a 1-inch flat paintbrush. On this one I used a 1/2-inch flat paintbrush just because this frame is so thin. But just paint all the way around the edge there, right up to that scalloped edge mark. And then once that had completely dried, I went in with my hot glue. Work very quickly so the hot glue doesn't harden or dry, but add a line of hot glue all the way around the back stapled edge of the frame, and then just smooth your cut canvas piece right onto the back there. And then I wanted to be just really neutral with my decoration inside the frame, so I took 6 pieces of twine. I cut it probably 2 feet long, each of them, 6 pieces, and then make a braid. So you double up each strand of the braid is 2 pieces of twine. Braid all the way down the length of your twine there, and I just secured it at the end with a piece of painter's tape so it wouldn't fray. Then I ordered this ball of, it's like a green ivy looking ribbon off Amazon. I'll link to it. I thought it'd be super fun to incorporate this into more of like my spring crafts, but I just twisted that very simply. Just twist the green ivy around the jute rope braid there, and then you're going to make a very simple heart. So I folded my little braid in half, and that made the base of my heart. So I hot glued that down, the little point at the bottom, and then you kind of finagle and hot glue here and there and try to make the heart as symmetrical as possible. The nice thing about that stretched canvas, that white front, it's kind of got like a painted surface, kind of plasticky feeling. So if you do hot glue your twine ribbon, your twine braid down, and you're like, oh, I don't like the position of that, you can pretty easily rip it up and then reposition and hot glue in a different spot. So feel free to undo and re-glue as needed, But then that's it, a very simple framed little heart for Valentine's Day. But there you have it. Here are all 3 of my finished Valentine's dollar store reverse canvas crafts in one spot. I do hope you enjoyed watching these projects come together. Until next time, happy making.